Here's 3 words that will destroy your IELTS speaking score, even if your grammar is perfect. Good, nice, and bad. If you're still using these in your test, stop watching cat videos and watch this instead, because I'm about to give you everything, and I mean everything, you need to fix your vocabulary for IELTS speaking in the next few minutes. My name is Keith. I run the Keith Speaking Academy. And I've helped thousands of students go from being stuck at band 5 and 6 to finally breaking into band 7, 8 and even 9. And almost every single time the breakthrough isn't grammar, it's vocabulary. Here's why this matters so much. Vocabulary is 25% of your speaking score, a full quarter. And the examiner isn't just counting how many big words you know. They're looking at 2 things: the range of vocabulary you use and how accurately you use it. So you need a lot of words and you need to use them correctly. Miss either one and your score drops. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 things. What kind of words you actually need to learn, how to learn them properly, the best way to make them stick in your memory, how to get them from sitting in your brain to actually coming out of your mouth in the test. And finally, exactly where to find this vocabulary. Stay until the end, because the last section alone could change how you prepare from today onwards. Let's start with the biggest myth in IELTS prep right now, the idea of band 9 words. You've probably seen those lists online, 1,000 advanced words you supposedly need to memorize to get a band 9. Here's the truth. Linguists have actually mapped out English vocabulary by level. Beginner, intermediate, advanced, using something like the CEFR framework. So yes, technically, band 9 level words do exist on paper. But here's the problem. Knowing a word exists and being able to use it are 2 completely different things. If you're currently a band 5 speaker and you go memorize a list of advanced C2 words, what happens? You don't understand the nuance. You don't know the connotation. You don't know the grammar that goes with it. And in the test, you'll either avoid using it because you're scared, or you'll use it wrong and it'll actually drag your score down instead of up. So here's my actual advice, and this is the single most important strategy in this entire video. Learn vocabulary at your current level and the level just 1 step above you. That's it. If you're a band 5, focus on band 5 and band 6 words, not band 9. You build up gradually. Trying to skip 3 levels ahead is like trying to run before you can walk. You're just going to fall on your face in front of the examiner. Now, a smarter question than which words do I need is what kinds of words should I be focusing on? And I've got 8 categories for you. Write these down because this is the framework that's going to organize your entire vocabulary learning from now on. Number 1, synonyms. Words with the same or similar meaning. Instead of always saying difficult, you could say tough, challenging, or even something more natural like a tall order. This is what gives you range. Number 2, antonyms. Words with opposite meanings. Instead of just saying a film was bad, you could say it was terrible, awful, or the worst film I've ever seen. See how much more natural and varied that sounds compared to just repeating good and bad the whole test. Number 3, word families. This means learning the different forms of a word. The noun, the verb, the adjective. Take friend. The noun is friend. The adjective is friendly. The verb is to befriend, though that's less common. You'd more naturally say to make friends. And the noun for the whole concept is friendship. Learning a word's whole family multiplies your vocabulary without multiplying your effort. Number 4, collocations. These are words that naturally go together in English. Heavy rain, black tea. And here's a tip. Collocations don't always translate directly from your own language, so you have to learn them as English actually uses them, not how you'd literally translate them from home. Getting this right is one of the fastest ways to sound more natural. Number 5, idiomatic expressions. These matter more from band 7 upward. An idiom is a phrase where the meaning isn't literal, like saying you're tickled pink, which just means you're really happy. You don't need a huge pile of these. You just need a handful that you can use naturally and confidently. Number 6, phrasal verbs, extremely common in everyday spoken English, and they instantly make you sound more fluent and natural. To put off means to postpone. To take away means to remove. To cut down on means to reduce. These are everywhere in natural conversation, so learning them gives you a huge boost in how authentic you sound. Number 7, the grammar of the word. This one surprises people because they think grammar and vocabulary are separate things. They're not. Do you say make friends to someone, make friends at someone, or make friends with someone? It's with. That little detail, which preposition goes with which word, whether it's countable or not, that's all part of truly knowing a word. And number 8, focus on spoken English, not written English. A lot of students study vocabulary from academic articles or essays. That's great for writing, but in the speaking test, you need natural conversational vocabulary, the kind people actually use when they talk, not when they write a report. Now, one more thing the band descriptors talk about, familiar versus unfamiliar topics. Familiar topics are everyday stuff, family, work, hobbies, shopping. Unfamiliar topics are things like climate change, globalization, the economy, topics most people don't discuss daily unless it's literally their job. At Band 6, you need to be able to talk at length about both. At Band 7 and above, you need to use vocabulary flexibly across both types. So don't just prepare for the easy, familiar topics. The bigger topics are where a lot of students get caught off guard. Okay, so now you know what kinds of words to focus on, but how do you actually learn them properly? Here's the biggest mistake students make: grabbing some random word list off the internet. Top 100 words for IELTS. 1,000 academic words you must know. These lists are basically useless on their own because the words have no context. You don't know how they're actually used, and your brain doesn't retain words that don't have a story attached to them. Instead, learn vocabulary from context. A podcast, a video, a transcript, a book, anything where the word appears naturally inside real language. And specifically, I recommend learning by topic. Group your vocabulary by theme: work, environment, society, hobbies, and so on. Why does this work so well? Because your brain organizes information the same way a computer organizes files, folders inside folders. When you learn words connected to the same topic, your brain links them together, and they're far easier to recall later. Once you've got your word in context, take proper notes. Here's exactly what I do. The same method I've used learning French, Spanish, and Chinese myself. For every new word, I note down 4 things: the grammar of the word, the meaning in plain English, useful collocations that go with it, and finally, a sample sentence that's actually true for my own life. Let me give you a quick, real example. Say I come across the word reputation while reading a sample answer about an apology. I don't fully know it, so I look it up. I learn it's a noun, it's countable, and it means being known for something. Then I check the grammar. You typically say a reputation for something. Then I grab 1 or 2 useful collocations. To have a bad reputation, to gain a reputation, to tarnish a reputation, meaning to ruin it. And finally, I write a sentence that's personally true for me. My brother has a reputation for being very generous. Now, I'm not just learning one isolated word. I'm practicing the grammar, the collocations, and other vocabulary all wrapped into one meaningful sentence. That's 1,000 times more powerful than a flashcard with a translation on it. Now let's talk memory, because this is where most students completely fall apart. There are 3 stages to remembering anything: getting the word into your head, which is called encoding, storing it, whether short-term or long-term, and recalling it later, which is the hardest part and the one that actually matters in the test. The most important stage is the first one, making the word memorable enough that it actually sticks. One method is mnemonics, memory tricks. For example, to remember the conjunctions for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, People use the acronym fanboys. Or, if you struggle spelling the word believe, remember the phrase never believe a lie, because the LIE inside lie is the same order as inside believe. Little tricks like this can lock a word into your memory far better than just staring at it. Other methods include mind maps, sometimes called spidergrams, where you visually organize related words with colors and branches. Some people love this, some people don't. Vocabulary learning isn't one size fits all, so experiment and find what actually works for your brain. Now here's something genuinely important from memory research. After just 1 hour of learning something new, you forget about 50% of it. After 24 hours, you've forgotten roughly 70%. That should honestly shock you a little. It means if you learn 10 new words today and don't review them, by tomorrow you'll only really remember 3. This is exactly why review isn't optional. It's the difference between vocabulary that disappears and vocabulary that becomes permanent. This is also why spaced repetition apps have become so popular. Tools where you review words at increasing intervals over time. Apps like these can genuinely help. But here's my one warning. A flashcard with just a word and a translation has no context. It's far more powerful if you've already built your own meaningful sentence around that word, like we talked about earlier. Combine spaced repetition with your own personal sentences, and you get the best of both worlds. Research also shows that to really lock a word into long-term memory, you need to encounter it in 3 or 4 different contexts. That's why I recommend this approach whenever you're studying a topic. Read something about it, listen to something about it, and watch something about it. Hitting the same vocabulary across different formats massively increases how well it sticks. Now, here's a question I get constantly. Keith, I know the word. I understand it when I read it or hear it, so why can't I use it when I'm speaking? This comes down to the difference between passive and active vocabulary. Passive vocabulary is everything you recognize when you see or hear it. Active vocabulary is what you can actually produce yourself on the spot in real conversation. For most learners, passive vocabulary is huge and active vocabulary is tiny in comparison. That gap between what you understand and what you can actually say is exactly why so many capable students freeze up in the speaking test. So how do you shrink that gap? You have to actively practice producing the words, not just recognizing them. Here are a few ways to do that. First, grouping. Take a list of words around one topic, say food, and organize them into categories that are personal to you. Things you like, things you don't like. For example, I like white bread. I love fresh fruit. I'm a big fan of sliced ham. I don't like cheese. I love tasty food. I don't like bland food. Notice what's happening. You're repeating different words, practicing synonyms, and creating real context all at once. Second, build your own true sentences. If you've just learned the word salty, don't just memorize the definition. Make sentences that are actually true for your life. I don't really like salty food. My partner always makes food too salty. I prefer meals that are less salty. The more personal and meaningful the sentence, the more naturally it'll come back to you under pressure. A great bonus tip here: record yourself saying these sentences and listen back to them when you're out walking or commuting instead of your usual playlist. Hearing your own voice using the new vocabulary is a surprisingly powerful way to cement it. And third, practice actual conversations. Whether it's with a study partner, a teacher, or even just talking to yourself, try weaving your new vocabulary naturally into spoken practice. The goal is to move that word from passive recognition into something you can produce instantly and naturally, without translating in your head first. Now finally, where do you actually find all this vocabulary? My biggest recommendation: prioritize spoken content over written content. Yes, reading books and articles helps. About 90% of vocabulary overlaps between written and spoken English. But the style and natural flow are different, And you specifically need spoken fluency for this test. So focus on things like TV, chat shows, interviews, podcasts, and even sitcoms, since they often reflect everyday, natural conversation about real life. Debates, whether on TV, radio, or YouTube, are fantastic too, especially for unfamiliar topics, since people are actively discussing and disagreeing on ideas, which gives you tons of useful language. And of course, IELTS sample answers, but specifically look for ones with audio, not just text. A huge number of written sample answers are stiff and overly formal, which isn't how the language naturally sounds when spoken. Listening-based learning gives you everything in one package: the natural spoken style, the real context for when a word is used, the correct collocations around it, and the actual pronunciation and intonation. You're not just learning a word, you're learning how it lives inside real spoken English. And don't forget to test yourself regularly. Testing isn't just a way to check your knowledge, it actually reveals whether you genuinely remember something or you only think you do. Tools like digital flashcard apps work well for this, or you can get a study partner or teacher to quiz you, asking you to define a word or use it in a sentence on the spot. You can even do this alone, talking out loud to yourself. It feels strange at first, but it works. So let's bring this all together. Vocabulary makes up a full quarter of your speaking score, and it's judged on both range and accuracy. Don't chase fancy Band 9 word lists. Learn vocabulary at your level and the level just above it. Focus on the 8 types of words we covered: synonyms, antonyms, word families, collocations, idiomatic expressions, phrasal verbs, the grammar around each word, and natural spoken style. Learn new words inside real context, organized by topic, and take proper notes. The meaning, the grammar, the collocations, and a personal sentence that's true to your life. Review constantly, because you'll forget the majority of what you learn within a day if you don't. And actively practice producing your vocabulary out loud through grouping, personal sentences, and real conversation, so it becomes active vocabulary you can actually use under pressure, not just words you silently recognize. One final, honestly crucial piece of advice: in the actual test, only use vocabulary you're genuinely comfortable and confident with. Reaching for a fancy word you're unsure of is a gamble that usually doesn't pay off, and it can drag your score down instead of lifting it up. Stick with what you know well, use it accurately and naturally, and that consistency will serve you far better than trying to impress the examiner with words you're shaky on. That's everything you need to transform your vocabulary for IELTS speaking. If this helped you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. What's your go-to method for learning new vocabulary? I read every comment, and honestly, we learn more from each other than you'd expect. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.